Yep. Greetings. I'm Commodore Dr. Johnson Odakkal. I'm the CEO of JOI, an initiative for knowledge, growth, and life. And it's my honor this afternoon to greet each one of you a happy Day of Seafarers 2022. 25th of June each year is now recognized as the Day of Seafarer, counting the invaluable contribution seafarers make to the international trade and the world economy, often at great personal cost to themselves and their families. The Day of the Seafarer was first celebrated in 2011 following its establishment by a resolution adopted by the Conference of Parties to the International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification and Watchkeeping for Seafarers, 1978, held in Manila, Philippines in June 2010, which adopted major revisions to the STCW Convention and Code. The Day of the Seafarer provides an opportunity to pay tribute to the world's 1.5 million seafarers for their unique and often overlooked contribution to the well-being of the general public. What is a classic image of seafaring that we have? Folklore and comics such as Popeye the Sailor have in the past painted an image of seafaring as a subaltern vocation undertaken by unruly, uncouth men who frequent taverns between voyages and apparently have a wife in each port. For decades, the expected demand from seafarers as gifts on return from their voyage was cheap liquor and bonded of foreign products at cheap rates or just complimentary. The 21st century seafarer has men and women with professional training living hectic lives aboard demographically mixed small cruise setups who hardly get to see foreign shores beyond the port facilities. Quicker turnaround of ships and location of modern ports away from the cities render the foreign visits a mere symbolic one, except when they are signing on or signing off. After the onset of the pandemic, the seafarer was seemingly further shunned by port authorities, company owners, state officials, and was among the few careers globally who were the most forgotten. Would we realize that the global economy runs only due to the efforts of these superheroes? So the Seafarer campaign theme for 2022 is Your Voyage, Then and Now, Share Your Journey. So let's have a seafaring journey in 3 quick stories. Now, I introduce myself, and I'm very honored to say it was a little under 40 years ago that I had the chance to sail and be part of the seafaring profession. But the seeds were planted much earlier, perhaps even 10 years earlier, when I read books about the ships in the sea. Today, as I share this story, I want to just, as I mentioned, just talk of three stories that kind of span the time frame and geography. The first story that I would like to share is what I call the Florida storm. So, this is a storm that encountered me in my very first year of sailing. I had just joined the shipping corporation as a deck cadet in 1983, and a few months later, our ship, a general purpose cargo carrier cum container ship, we found ourselves having sailed from Houston and through the Bermuda Triangle, and we were off Florida heading back to the continent, to the European coast, when a severe storm hit the area and our ship. Now, I was a cadet leader, so in the morning when we got up, all of us cadets, when we went on deck, we knew that we were in trouble because the cargo had shifted, the cargo which was on deck. And then we went ahead and trying to sort out the stuff that had fallen and to put the lashings again. And as I stepped a little back, I saw a huge wave higher than the mast break over the deck of the ship. And along with another cadet who came running to join me, we knew there was severe trouble. When we went ahead to where the people were working, we realized that 6 of our shipmates had actually got injured, fallen down, broken their bones. Some were in a very severe state. It took all our effort, and we somehow moved them one by one before another wave could come. And the captain turned the ship around, radioed for help, and the U.S. Coast Guard based at Miami responded. They directed us to progress at best speed possible. By evening, of course, the U.S. Coast Guard aircraft came and dropped the paramedics by their parachutes, and then we lowered our lifeboats and we picked them up. And that is a scene, some of those scenes with my fellow cadets that has remained just printed on my memory forever, how delicate and how frail we are compared to the sea. But that also set me on the importance of seafaring and the need for seamanship. My second story that I want to talk about is from somewhere in 2006. And this is a story that I called of relief that mariners provide to someone else who is in distress. So I was the executive officer or the second in command of the ship called INS Jyoti that is on your screen. And we were operating with the Eastern Fleet with a few other ships somewhere beyond Malaysia in the waters towards a little south of the South China Sea. And then we received news of a severe earthquake that had hit Indonesia, especially the city of Yogyakarta. Based on a communique between the fleet commander and naval headquarters, it was decided that relief had to be immediately provided to Indonesia. So my ship, which was a tanker, became the hub, and one by one, each ship would prepare relief material, and they would come alongside, and we would undertake transfer of goods, and I was supervising that. And very soon, relief material piled up on the ships, and finally, one of the destroyers came alongside, and we transferred all of the content, relief content, back to that ship, and that ship provided relief to Indonesia the fastest possible from any source globally, thus providing a story of how in the maritime domain we help each other, and seafarers are usually the first on the spot when there is a need. And the next story that is much closer in time is about a very interesting facet that I was involved in terms of its story, its coverage, in its start and its ending. And that was the Navika Sagar Parikrama, which was a sailing by 6 Indian naval officers, all women crew, on board the Indian naval sailing vessel Tarani. And I had the honor and privilege to go across to Cape Town, in the southern tip of South Africa. And in that sailing, in between that passage, in between that portion, when the Tarani was at Cape Town, they sailed for a trial sortie after some work, and I had the opportunity to sail with Lieutenant Commander Vartika Joshi as a skipper, and they did a fine job. And that's me on the screen. It was an amazing experience to be at sea in the waters of South Africa, and that is forever imprinted. That vessel went on to complete the circumnavigation, crossing all the meridians of longitude, started from Goa, came back to Goa, was seen off with fanfare, received with great cherish, and it really showed that now how sailing or ocean sailing, which has been part of our legacy, and I could have been a small part of it. So those were just kind of a span of my voyage across many years, almost 40 years of my sailing life. So with that, let me come to, if you ask a question, so what is the environment today? We began with how the image of seafarers was many years ago. And how can we provide support? What can we do to make the cause of seafaring better? And the very first part that I want to indicate is, if we look today at any merchant vessel, it is recognized by two phrases: diversified demography and flag of convenience. And on board a vessel, you'll find men and women from different nationalities. You could have a Norwegian master, a Bangladesh chief engineer, an Indian chief officer. You could have the crew again from Philippines, India, maybe even somewhere in the African, Nigerian countries. And you could, like that, have a crew which just represents a global cosmopolis within just a strength of 20 or 30. And that's not all. None of them may belong to the country in which the ship is registered. The ship with all this diversified crew, which could be owned by a European owner and could be registered in Monrovia or say in Liberia. So, or even in Panama. And that represents the nature of seafaring. There is no nation, but they represent every nation. The second element that I would cover is that seafaring brings connections, and it asks us to have empathy in terms of a social connections, in terms of policy response. And I know the IMO has been at the forefront to educate people. Of late, even in India, there has been a greater awareness. But for most of us, seafarers are not on our horizon. They are what is called absence, out of sight and out of mind. That's the framework in which they operate. So today, may I ask, if you know a seafarer, or if you have a family member who knows a seafarer, or if you have a friend whose family member is a seafarer, send them a message. Greet them on today as Seafarers Day and just encourage them. And the third aspect that I would want to bring in our contribution is something from my own journey. I was being very privileged that the Indian Navy gave me, in my last 6 years in naval life, the position to be Director of Maritime History Society. And I was associated with it for almost a decade prior to that. But that made my awareness go a few levels higher of our maritime heritage and legacy. And to me, that is something that we who may not go to sea, not we, I mean, I may not currently go to sea, I'd love to go back, but those who can't go to sea can learn about the sea, can be aware of the maritime heritage, if you're from India, about India's maritime heritage, or whichever nation you are, or whichever nation, seafaring nation is close to you. Learn about it. Learn how seafaring has set the trends of leadership and legacy across the oceans. And that's one way we can contribute greatly. Coming to India, we have a vast coastline, you have so many coastal states, and it's my appeal to young people, to students, to academics, to teachers, be aware of the seafaring legacy, be aware of us as a coastal nation, and that will be one great contribution that we could probably do in this context. So I wanted this time to just bring focus on what we do as an organization. We at GOI, we have recognized this whole principle called life navigation. I am a marine navigator by my specialization. And so what we say is, allow us to empower you to envision and execute effectiveness. Reach out to us as www.johnsonodakkal.com, and may we use principles of learning from the sea to help you navigate your life better. Not just that, soon we will be having a special workshop called Heritage for Legacy. This starts on July 18th and goes on till 29 July. 6 sessions, which we at GOI will be very happy to bring stories of heritage and how it's a legacy. Of course, I will be sharing stories about my own seafaring voyages, some things that I have not shared today. If I begin, it will take a long time. So please be a part of it and do sign up for that. And that is one way that you will be able to help promote the cause by partnering with us. So as I come to a close, the question is, will we support seafarers today? Will be a part of, as I mentioned, just greet them, encourage them, encourage people who have a spirit of adventure to make seafaring their profession and their life. Learn about it, read about it, and that will be a great service in this cause. So as I close, what is my message for my fellow seafarers and for the audience who is watching live, and maybe even the recorded video later? So I have just this message. Please know that seafarers are the legs to the maritime legacy. And I am taking a quote and adjusting it from Dr. John C. Maxwell, one of my mentors. And that will give us the value that they so strongly deserve. Secondly, let us together strive to enhance our maritime consciousness. After all, life begins at sea, and the life of the planet survives because of the sea. And that's my third message. Let's be part to make safe and sustainable seas. Please reach out to us and see how you can play a part, because many of our practices on land are gradually choking and destroying the oceans. And that finally affects seafarers and the global economy. So today, once again, as I close, to all my fellow seafarers, happy International Seafarers Day. To each one of us who are not from the seafaring profession, be conscious and increase your sea-mindedness. And that's the best way we can celebrate this day. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Jai Hind and Shanno Varun.